Good evening and welcome back to Montgomery Heart Wellness. Hope you've had a great day today. It's a nice warm evening here in Houston. And many of you may have seen on the station earlier, I talked about hypertension. And I shared with you then that I would give you some insights and my perspective on the tragic death of Tina Turner. I'm sure many of you have heard that she passed at the age of 83 yesterday. And what we're going to do is look at Tina Turner's life and talk about her lifestyle and how it impacted her health. As you know, I always like to take a health perspective on all of these news breaks on movie stars, or athletes who are in the public eye who suffer, say, a tragic illness or death, in a way that we can all possibly learn from it. What can we learn from the life of Tina Turner? She was a wonderful star. I remember as a young kid, seeing her with, Ike and Tina Turner, hearing about, Ike and Tina Turner and hearing about them performing and watching them on TV. I was, very young at that time and wasn't following music too much, but I do remember Ike and Tina Turner. I remember when she broke out, as a soloist after she divorced Ike and she had a resurgence in her career. So Tina Turner has been in the public eye for a long time. And as many of you know by now, she died recently. She had a stroke a number of years ago. She had renal failure. She had suffered from hypertension a long time in the past and a number of other issues. So I want to share with you some of her life story, and then talk about how that may have impacted her health. So, Tina Turner, dead at the age of 83. 83 is a pretty good life span. That's actually beyond the life expectancy here in the United States. So she didn't do badly. And so we're going to talk about the positive aspects of her lifestyle and things that worked against her. So her life, her illness, and their connections is really what I want to focus on, in hopes that we can learn something and then apply some things to our lives. So before we get started, those of you, I want you to like in the station, subscribe if you're new to this channel, share this information. I think this information needs to go to as many people as possible, and also hit the notification button if you're also new and you share. So Tina Turner's life. Let's look at her life in a nutshell. Now, I'm not going to go over her life in much detail. You're going to get that information elsewhere. But what I'd like to do is share some basic information. Now, she is a very young person, and you look at her Wikipedia profile, it showed that she suffered from a broken home. Her mother left the home. She had a number of tragedies early in life. At the age of 18, she and her sister started frequenting nightclubs. And in fact, that's where she met Ike. And she became a star at a young age. This, in many people's eyes, can be a good thing. And there are some positive aspects of this, but there are also some difficult aspects of this. She married Ike Turner at a young age, and she unfortunately suffered in an abusive marriage, both emotionally and physically. She eventually left her husband, had a successful resurgence in her career. She started a romantic relationship with Aaron Bach at the age of, I think she was 47 at the time. This was in 1986. He was 16 years her junior. And they were together for about 27 years until they eventually married in 2013. So this is a little bit of a snapshot overview of her life and the things, the ups and downs of her life and what she went through. And so let's now look at her illnesses. She had multiple chronic illnesses, as we know, and this is all well documented, many of which is reported in her book. In 2013, this was 3 weeks after she married her second husband, Aaron Bach. She suffered a stroke, and apparently it was a massive stroke, or a very significant stroke, because she had to learn to walk again. In 2016, she was diagnosed with intestinal cancer. Apparently that was treated, the details of which I'm not aware of. She had a history of hypertension. Now, she used homeopathic remedies for her hypertension, and there are reports that she later regretted this. And I did a video on what is homeopathic medicine, and the link to that video is in the notes to this is below in the show. So you want to understand what homeopathic medicine is. In fact, I interviewed a homeopathic medical practitioner, and we give you a lot of insight. What I will say, not just about homeopathic medicine, but about people who seek natural cures, quote unquote. I want to do things naturally. They may take herbs, they may take supplements and things like that. I'm a big proponent of allowing the body to heal itself naturally. However, it's not just about taking an herb or just getting a little acupuncture or getting this or that. There's a whole process. There's a whole collective approach to allowing the body to heal itself, and it starts with some of the basic things, the fundamental things, and it really starts with how you nourish the body, how you hydrate the body, sleep. And I'm going to go over some of those things in detail. But oftentimes people want to do things quote unquote naturally, but you have to be fundamentally natural, and we're going to talk about how that's done. So she had untreated high blood pressure, which resulted in kidney failure. She eventually had to undergo a kidney transplant. It's my understanding that her husband, Aaron Bach, donated a kidney. However, she, became ill and really, from what the reports are, suffered from chronic illness and sickness throughout the latter stage of her life. In fact, she was so ill, and I believe this was before she received the kidney transplant, she considered suicide. And so that's certainly something that is very telling in terms of what she was going through. But let's look at some of her lethal lifestyle factors. So how did her lifestyle may have contributed to her health issues? Now, we all have images of Tina Turner. I mean, she looked very young when she was in her 40s and 50s, dancing on the stage, those long legs and that very sexy appeal. So she looked like the picture of health on the outside, but for a long time, she was carrying lots of illness with her. And so, what in her lifestyle was contributing to that illness? So, for instance, let's talk about the emotional trauma. Now, many people may not think about emotional trauma as a contributing factor for our illness, but emotional trauma early in life contributes to our illness, not only emotional illness, but also physical illness. She had a broken family, as I highlighted. Her mother left the home suddenly. Apparently, her father was abusive, and that was probably the reason why her mother left suddenly. And so she had frequent moves when she was young. She went and lived with different relatives and different people over time. She was in a long-standing abusive marriage, as I mentioned earlier. Again, this ongoing emotional trauma is something that that was quite telling. And I have a quote from her, and I'm going to pull this up. She stated something to the effect that, and I'll pull this quote up. So here's a quote from Tina Turner. Let me see here if I can find that. So she was quoted in Rolling Stone magazine. My taste was high. So when it came to role models, I looked at presidents' wives. Of course, you're talking about a farm girl who stood in the fields dreaming years ago, wishing she was that kind of a person. But if I had been that kind of a person, meaning a president's wife or somebody in high status, do you think I can sing with the emotions I do? You sing with those emotions because you've had pain in your heart. Now, just let that sink in. So here's someone who's revealing that her talent, and we've seen this in other situations. In fact, it's fairly a common denominator with very creative people. You look in their lives, and there's a lot of pain, a lot of emotional discourse that's happening either in the present or in their past. And so she clearly states, you sing with those emotions because you've had pain in your heart. So she was quite, open about the fact that, she was having pain and was suffering from these emotional setbacks. So Emotional distress in her past certainly contributed to her health issues. Now, how about the stress? The stress in her career. Clearly, working in nightclubs from early in life, that fast-paced life. You're probably not sleeping well, probably not getting good hours of sleep, and maybe you're up half the night performing throughout the day. So that has an impact on you. Lack of control in her profession. Early on, there was reported that Ike Turner controlled all the finances. She had no control over her finances, and this may have gone on even after her relationship with Ike Turner. Lots of lawsuits after her divorce, so she had to work hard to pay off the lawsuits and settle many of them. So these things obviously contribute. So emotional past, stressful career. How about the dietary habits? Now, she reportedly ate the standard American diet as a youth. However, she became older. She started eating healthier. She reportedly did not consume drugs. She didn't abuse drugs. She said she drank alcohol only socially. Apparently did not eat excess processed foods. And she reportedly did not eat after 6 p.m. But her dietary lifestyle later in life probably wasn't enough to reverse a lot of the chronic ailments that started early. When you're trying to use nutrition in a healthy way, it's one thing to eat healthy, quote unquote healthy, but it's another thing to optimize your nutrition and do nutritional detox. You have to go to a certain extreme. She ate a combination of Thai and Italian food mostly. There was no mention of organic preferences, no mention of how the food was prepared. So if you look at typical Thai and Italian food, you see what's up here on the screen. Clearly, there's sort of shrimp and pastas and cheeses and the like. And yes, there's some healthy, colorful food there. So it's all mixed in with the food that's not optimal. So it may not have been enough to help reverse a lot of these ailments. But what are the possible redeeming factors? What are the positive things in her lifestyle that help her get to 83? Again, she got to 83, which is actually pretty good. One thing I didn't list, before I get to the physical fitness part, she was born in 1939. Now, I say that to emphasize the fact that many people who are living to older ages now, because people come and say, well, Uncle Joe, he smoked and he ate bad food and he lived to 85, 95, 105, whatever Uncle Joe lives to. And so someone mentioned K. Freeman, Thai fatty foods. That's right. But also in 1939, they weren't walking around with cell phones, nor were they in 1949 or 59, et cetera. They didn't have the amount of toxicity that we have in our environment now. The amount of pollution in the water, the pollution in the air is much greater now than it was back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So she did not grow up in as toxic of an environment as we're growing up, as we're living in now. Now, that happened to her later on, but she had a start that was not as toxic from the environmental standpoint. I say that to say this, we have to be extra mindful of our current environment. And so Uncle Joe, who lived to 95 or 105 and he ate regular food and smoked cigarettes, that may be true, but certainly when he was young, he didn't have all the other toxins we're dealing with. So if you do those unhealthy things now, you're compounding those poor health habits, bad food, bad other habits with the normal toxins in our environment. That's why we're saying younger and younger people with chronic illnesses. Back in 1939, 49, 59, 69, you weren't seeing 12-year-olds and 15-year-olds with type 2 diabetes and heart failure, et cetera. We're seeing that now. And so that's due to the fact that we have an extra toxic environment, the air, the water, et cetera. Plus, we're dealing with toxic food that's worse now than it was then. Even the junk food now is more toxic than the junk food there. So I want to emphasize that as also a redeeming factor. The timing of her life contributed to her overall well-being. How about her physical fitness status? She was a dancer and a singer. She was always exercising. It's reported that she exercised regularly, especially in preparation for performances. We know that exercise contributes to overall well-being. Exercise by itself is not enough, but it certainly contributes greatly, and it's a very important part of optimal lifestyle. That's something. Now, what about her loving relationship? As I said, she got into a loving relationship with a young man at the age of 46. She was fairly young. And so this was a 23-year relationship. They got married at the age of 73. Relationships are very important, whether it's relationships with friends and neighbors, connecting with people is really important. Loved ones, whether it's a spouse or a girlfriend or fiance, and it can be children, whether they're very young or your other children. Connecting with other people is very, very important. So this was definitely a positive component of her lifestyle, and I think contributed to her overall lifespan. So if you think about it, there's a balance that one has to look into. And yes, she had a very hard life. She had a lot of challenges, but there were some things that countered those things. When she was born, the love relationships, and also, she loved the music. She had purpose in life. She loved what she did, and I think that contributed greatly in a positive factor. So we look at those things in a balance. So what can we learn from this? What can we do to learn from Tina Turner's life? What can we apply from this lesson to our lives and in terms of helping our lifestyle? Take control of your lifestyle. So, knowing this, you want to understand, your emotional conditions, your relationships, proper nutrition and hydration, starts there. Very simple things, proper rest, okay, healthy relationships. If you're in a tough relationship, you may need to reconsider that. Find meaning and purpose in your life. That's very, very important. Manage stress. Now, that's an easy thing to say. If you have a stressful job, your boss is on your back, how do you manage that? Well, there's certain things you do. You may have to go for walks and meditate and prayer and build a strong relationship with God. That's primary. Your spiritual connection to God, our maker, is very, very important. It helps keep you balanced throughout. Now, many of these things may take some time. If you're diagnosed with heart failure today, you're diagnosed with chest pain or high blood pressure, you may not be able to activate all of these things right away. You can't quit your job right off the bat. It may not be economically feasible, but there are some basic steps you can take immediately to start turning your health around. And here are some of the basic first steps. I went over this in my previous talk on hypertension. Some basic first steps: hydration and fasting. So if you have a critical diagnosis, heart disease or cancer, whatever the case may be, the foundation of any detox, consume the best water. It can be either alkaline water, distilled water that's infused with greens like a blue-green algae, spirulina, or organic greens to populate the minerals and nutrients in that distilled water. Can be good. Distilled water starts to be the best by some experts because it starts to remove all the toxins, all the plastics and metals that's in our contaminated water, and allow you to start fresh. Exercise. You don't have to do rigorous exercise. Go for a walk if you're able to walk, or just around the house, your neighborhood. Stretching, mild strength training as your fitness level builds up. High intensity interval training as you become more conditioning, and of course, optimal nutrition. For all of our patients who come in with a chronic illness, we start them on a raw plant-based diet only 15, 30 days, 45 days, however long we think is necessary to improve their overall health condition. If you look at our talk on hypertension, I go through the steps of how we work with an individual who came in with an extremely high blood pressure, and this individual, with that high blood pressure, was able to get it under control within about 2 to 3 days and normalized within less than 2 weeks. And this is using the detox regimen. And so this is our reverse hypertension in 3 steps. Video you can find on our channel. Take a look at that. We walk through and go through a lot of details and things that you can do immediately. And also to look at my lecture on what is homeopathic medicine. Here's the link. The link for both of those are in the notes for this show. So again, thank you very much for your attention. And of course, like, subscribe, and share. especially if you're new to this channel, and share this information with everyone. Thank you everyone for being in the chat. There are lots of beautiful comments. Secondhand smoke. Some people talk. Uncle Joe grew up eating different food. That's correct. And she overcame many odds as a woman in the era. She came to greatness in this great testimony to many ladies. That's a great comment here. Monique Rilardi says, rest in peace. High carbohydrates in the probably in the Thai and Italian diet. And Tina said she would have gotten Western medicine treatment for high blood pressure. Is that the only way to reverse high blood pressure? Adrian, no. Arian, no. The best way to reverse high blood pressure is natural approaches. I break it down in my talk on reversing hypertension. The link is below. That's a great question. And Judge Joe said, while Tina was with Ike, Tina attitude was rough with a very bad attitude, cussing language. Yeah, the people you're around impact how you behave. It impacts your behavior, and what you're taking in from them emotionally, psychologically, impacts your health as well. And you're giving out the same thing. I read her book and learned of her illness of high blood pressure and kidney failure, and how her husband gave her a kidney. Yep, that's correct. And someone asked a question, why, Kay Freeman, why does high blood pressure now causing so many to be on kidney failure? Yeah, high blood pressure is multiple factors. We call it essential hypertension. That's because we don't know the underlying cause, or better stated, there are multiple factors contributing to the underlying cause. And these factors vary from person to person. So it's not like you say, well, this condition A is causing condition B, and condition B is high blood pressure, so we can treat condition A, then condition B goes away. What we see is that high blood pressure due to metabolic imbalances, biochemical imbalances, and this is often due to toxicity, increase in toxicity. Another way of saying that is increased oxidative stress. You can also increase inflammation, abnormal microbiome. So the body is totally off balance, off kilter. And a lot of this, most if not all of it, comes from our toxic environment. A big part of our toxic environment is the food that we put in our system. She was loved before my time to be loved in the 80s. Great. And so again, diabetes is a major contributing factor to kidney failure. Shaquille Oatmeal states that. I'm just trying to get some of the information. Hi, Monique. I'm doing fine. Good to see you here in the chat. Great comments in the chat. Thank you very much for coming on. Let's see here. Jacqueline McGee, I had congestive heart failure. I'm sorry to hear that. That can also be reversed and naturally controlled. How long after starting a plant-based plan can one expect to normalize blood pressure and blood sugar? Go to our lecture, the talk reference here, the link, Reversing Hypertension, in just a few days. It gives you lots of information. I'm also going to come out with a talk on how to jumpstart detox your system, because controlling these conditions is very straightforward. That you got to take the right definitive steps, and we have a detox course I'm going to share with you very soon that's going to help you with that. And I think it's going to make a big difference in all of your lives. But anyway, thank you all very much for supporting the channel. And it's always a pleasure to visit with you and share information with you. Please like, subscribe, and share this information. It needs to go viral. And again, till the next video, y'all take care. And